When the weather forecast becomes a political battleground, something has gone deeply wrong. In this episode of Decoding Disinformation, we explore a chilling new front in the war against climate change: the coordinated attacks on TV weather presenters. These aren't just familiar faces giving the daily forecast. Many are trained scientists who now find themselves under fire for doing one simple thing: connecting the dots between extreme weather and climate change. In Germany, no one embodies these crossroads more clearly than Özden Terli, a respected meteorologist with ZDF, Germany's public broadcaster. His science-based reporting has made him a trusted public figure and a prime target for online hate, racist slurs, conspiracy-driven harassment, and political smear campaigns. And he's not alone, unfortunately. Today we're joined by Christian Jakob, investigative journalist at the German daily Taz and co-author of a powerful case study that examines how weather presenters have become the bridge between journalism and science, and why disinformation actors are working so hard to tear that bridge down. So Christian, let me welcome Christian to the show. Christian, how are you?
Hello, Javier. Yes, thank you very much for the invite. I'm doing fine.
Thank you very much for joining this episode of Decoding Disinformation. So let's start. The phrase, and I quote unquote, parasites or system whores, opens the report. It's a brutal sentence, but it seems to be pretty real as well. So how did you first notice the intensifying abuse against meteorologists, and what made you decide to focus a full investigation on them?
So the quote you have been citing has been posted on Blue Sky at the end of our research. We had invited Özden Terli, the weather presenter you mentioned, to an event, to a panel in Berlin last week. We wanted to discuss our findings with him, and even on Blue Sky, which is regarded as a somewhat nicer platform, not so insulting as Twitter, the very first reply on a post my colleague Jean-Philippe Barc did to announce the panel, this was the first comment. What you said, journalist, parasite, system horse. And it didn't come as a surprise to us. We were a bit surprised that it was on Blue Sky. We had expected this to be on Twitter like that, but it is really widespread. And we have been noting this for quite a while. We have been researched jointly on attacks on journalists for quite a while now, also with IPI, with Faktograf. And one topic that is in the very center of the anti-press mobilization from the far right, from populist groups, from conspiracy groups, is a climate policy, climate protection. It is, I would say, the second most important topic next to migration, and hence it's no surprise that journalists who are doing an engaged and responsible and meaningful reporting on the climate crisis more or less automatically get into the focus of these anti-press sentiments, mobilizations, and accusations.
Özden Terli continues to link daily weather to climate data. So despite all this backlash, why is that so threatening to his critics? And what do you make of the accusation that he's doing climate activism on state TV, that journalists are parasites or system whores, as you were saying, quote unquote, again?
It has different dimensions. One dimension, I would say, is that there is a general sentiment against public broadcasters in general, no matter what they're reporting about. You have the widespread notion today that they are biased, that they are state propaganda machines. The fact that Germany is collecting a monthly fee of €18.36 that everybody has to pay for, which was like this ever since, is provoking many people who are saying that they are forced to pay for green left propaganda. There has been criticism on public broadcasters for quite a while, but it has intensified significantly over the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years. And every time when there is a public broadcaster reporting on, be it migration, be it climate, be it gender, so these, and COVID, of course, these hot topics, so to say, then they always come up with, we are being forced to pay for this kind of propaganda. We don't want this anymore. So we have to get rid of this. And whenever a person like Östin Terli mentions the fact that it's not just hot, it's not just dry, there's not just a flood, but it's a systematic consequence of man-made global warming or global heating, then they say he cannot prove this, he has no clue, he's not a scientist, he's just doing propaganda, ideology, and we are forced to pay for this. He should get dismissed, and it doesn't come out of the blue. There is random sentiment like this expressed by, let's say, everyday people, yes, but above this, you have, I would say, an organized attempt to discredit and delegitimize public broadcasters in Germany. You see this as a pattern in different countries. It's like this in Austria, for example, in Switzerland. The Populist Party regard public broadcaster as a threat to their attempt to seize power. And they openly say if we get to the power, there's going to be no more ARD, no more ZDF as you know it. We won't make people pay anymore for that. And there's going to be no more green left biased reporting. And they are openly trying to give reasons why they want to dismantle this media system that has been so extremely broadly trusted by the vast majority of people in Germany. And so they're picking individual journalists and saying, you see this guy, he's trying to convince you that it's all a consequence of our lifestyle, and he's trying to give you bad conscience for the way you are living in order to facilitate the politics of the Greens and of the left. And we are going to stop with that. So that's the basic political dynamic behind it.
You've also highlighted this trend, right? That this is not just happening in one country, but in several countries actually, or at least that we know here in Europe that you've been, researching this phenomenon. So you spoke to several presenters who said that they've even changed how they communicate, or in some cases, become a little bit more cautious on how they explain certain things. So what impact is this having on climate journalism and in the public understanding of this issue, of course?
It has quite different aspects. Some people are just tired. They have been having this kind of discussions for years, and they say, I cannot do it anymore. I think it's pointless. I wanted to be present on social media, and I wanted to spread the message. I wanted to report and explain and discuss. But the way the discussions are going really made me so tired, I can't do it anymore. Some even say that they were considering to not continue working in the field. One meteorologist I spoke to, who is regularly giving speeches at universities to university students who are studying meteorology, and a few years ago, working for television as a weather presenter would have been an important perspective or something they would wish to do. And now he has been hearing repeatedly that they consider to do something else because they would not want to work for TV anymore, because they say all this hate and these pointless accusations and allegations, why should I bother with this? I wouldn't want to do that. And others say, I think it's very important to not step back, to continue arguing, to be visible, to be fighting for what we see in our data, that people do understand what it means to our livelihoods. And therefore they take the challenge and they continue to argue on social media, despite the fact that it's not actually their core scope of their work. Normally they are weather presenters for TV, but still they say today it's important to interact on social media. It became very tedious and very exhausting. But as I said, some said it's too heavy burden for them receiving all these hostilities. Others say it is, but I think it's so important that I continue to do it. Östin Terli was one of them, and that was the reason why we picked him for the portrait.
In many ways, this case is about a bridge between science and journalism, since they are like communicating on a TV, broadcast, and they're often linked to the news segments, right? So why do you think that figures like Terli and the other journalists, the other weather forecasters that you've interviewed are especially vulnerable in this ecosystem of hate?
As I said, one fact is, or one aspect is definitely public broadcasters. Public broadcasters are like one of the core targets of far-right mobilization. They're saying that all these notion of globalism, of wokeness, of gender stupidity, of climate religion, everything that is facilitating mass immigration was only possible because the media in general, what they call mainstream media, and the public broadcasters in particular, have been taken over by what they regard to be leftists, which is basically only, I would say, people with a democratic mindset, I would say. But if you look at in the US, Trump has been doing something for years that we could observe in Germany. For example, with the far-right Pegida mobilizations in 2014, this series of anti-Muslim immigration demonstrations. When they started to speak, the first thing they did was accusing individual journalists. They were just reading their names and quoting one sentence they wrote in the week before about Pegida demos. And the people were really booing them, and they were shouting lying press and traitors of the people and all this. And Trump has been doing the same thing, fake news media and all this. We have seen it for years now. And this notion that that liberal, I would say liberal pro-democratic media and journalists are opposing the sovereignty of the people and the people's will is one of the core messages of the far right. And that's why they are putting so much effort in demonizing, delegitimizing, and discrediting the media. Because in that moment that people don't trust pro-democratic, somehow liberal media anymore, then of course, where do they get the information from? They get it from all these far-right, alt-right propaganda alternative media ecosystem that has been exploding. So this is one of the most important strategies to gain more popularity. And that's why journalists from public broadcasters are particularly in the focus, at least in Germany. And I would say, I mean, you don't have this in the US, but you did have, I don't know, CNN, CBS, and they all have been, Washington Post, New York Times, and they all have been accused in a quite similar way as betraying the people, lying to the people, and being mouthpieces of some pro-democratic, woke propaganda institutions.
And also, I mean, I don't think this is all only about having two types of media, right? Media, this, as you were describing, this liberal media, pro-democratic media, and so on, and also this alt-right scene with extremist news sites and so on. Because at the end of the day, is like anyone is free to go and read whatever they want, like each one of the medias. For me, the point here, and one of the things that this study shows a lot and surfaces is the fact that what you're not contesting and what you're not discrediting with all these campaigns of hate is the editorial line. What you are discrediting and trying to contest is facts, is evidence, right? So anyone can have the editorial line that they see fit in their news outlet, right? But there's one thing, is that facts are facts, evidence are evidence, and there's a code of conduct by journalists, that we need to all of us abide to, which is reporting on what is evidence and providing context, around it to give information. So I think that this report shows precisely how this bridge between science, evidence, and journalism, it's being, bombarded from all fronts, but not all fronts, I would say, but from a very particular front, especially from extremists, ideologies, and populism, right? With a specific agenda behind that. This is the agenda that you were describing. So I think that it goes beyond the editorial line of one or two, or like the trenches of the news outlets or of the media sector, right?
I would say it's totally correct that the anti-science sentiment is another very, very important political strategy at the moment, and it is, of course, in the center of the hatred and the allegations against climate journalists. If you look at the US, unfortunately, it's a good example for many things at the moment. The government has been trying to delete all kind of documents from government websites that only mention the word climate. They are dissolving institutions that are researching climate change. They shouldn't continue to work anymore. And the ideological trick that has been preceding this was to say that facts are not facts, but ideology. This was the main argument they're giving. They're saying if a person like Ostenterli says, we observed a warming of, I don't know, 1.95 degrees above the reference period 1916 to 99 in this summer, I don't know, just as an example. That's a fact. We got it from the satellites. We didn't do anything about it. This is a Excel file that we got from the satellite data. I'm not lying. And this is it's like that. Then you can bet on this that they say, yeah, okay, but this is maybe just once per year, or who knows if the satellite data was not manipulated, and there has been droughts in the past as well. You know, they're saying it's dry, and then next month there's so much rain, so evidently it's not what they say, and so on. They use all kind of, be it how do I say changes in weather patterns to try to reject the fact that the general climate is changing, as well as pure lies, simple lies. So it's all kind of things. They say
So
I
they are
don't like it
basically
all.
cherry picking,
It has all
like events, specific events, and bringing this specific event to a general trend to basically reject
for example,
the climate crisis,
For example, it can be anything. This they could say we think it's just manipulated. They say there has been weather changes in the past. They say, okay, maybe it's the way he says, but it's not so bad, and so on. It can be all kind of this, but the underlying notion is what the scientists say, who are experts in this, doesn't really matter. We know it better. We shouldn't put too much attention on what the scientists say. Either they are being ideologically biased, or they are corrupt, or they simply have I don't know, a religious belief in climate change, or they hate our lifestyle. This is another argument. So anti-science sentiment argumentations is also in the core of this populist agenda. And when you have a science journalist, because climate journalists are science journalists, of course, and they say, what I think we politically should do is one thing. We can discuss this, but what I tell you, what is happening in the physics, in the empiric, there's nothing to discuss about it. It's like that. We can discuss the consequences, what we should do, okay? But we can't discuss the fact that it has become warmer and this is not normal and it's too fast and all that. And that's the point when they say, no, we don't trust you. That's all ideological bullshit. You should simply tell us the weather on the weekend to see if we can go for a ride or not. And everything else, it's leave us alone with that. And you see this in other fields as well. It's a widespread propaganda tool to undermine the authority of rationality of universities, of research, of researchers, to always say that's an elite thing. It's an elite who's doing it, who is disconnected from everyday people's problem, and they have urban, upper class, globalist, whatever lifestyle. They are not rooted within a community and whatsoever. And that's why they shouldn't be the ones who are leading political decisions, but it should be people who feel what ordinary, everyday people really want. And they want to replace the authority of rationality and science by an authority that emerges from some kind of fantasized proximity to people's feelings or whatever. This is when they come in, and that's why you have this confrontation.
This clash all the time. Look, so for me, I kind of trace back like this modern or this postmodern fight between truth and opinion to one specific moment that it was a little bit, I was a bit, to be honest, flabbergasted by all this, because I remember in 2016 when Donald Trump won the elections for the first time, and I remember that there was this stupid discussion about whether there was like the size of the crowd that attended the inauguration. I remember, and then I specifically remember in an interview with the CNN that they interviewed Kellyanne Conway, who was one of the principal advisors of Donald Trump at the moment, who, they were arguing about the size of the journalist was interviewing, was asking her about, I mean, it is a fact that he was saying that it is a fact that the size of the crowd was not as big as, Donald Trump was saying. And then Kellyanne Conway, do you remember her reply? It was, well,
Yeah.
that's your fact, but there are alternative facts. And that was the moment for me that it says, wait, no, there are facts, period. There's not alternative facts. So that was for me one of the key moments, like worldwide, like all the focus, all the attention, when, it was somehow discussed for the first time, that facts and opinions, could be equated, could be sitting on the same table. And from them, we've experiencing a eroding, trend towards facts, towards journalism, towards evidence-based, journalism. What do you think what's the impact of all these trends on the society, on democracy in itself?
Yes, I just described. You have been having an era, I would say, where the influence of rationality and science has been increasing, and it was I would say, for the benefit of everyone. Rationality has proven a good paradigm for deciding where a society should go to, what political decisions should be based on. Of course, it needs to be discussed on social level. It's not just that the scientists should dictate what it is, but to have a common ground in terms of what we can know about certain dynamics, about physics, about chemistry, about biology, about sociology, and all this on the basis of evidence and on a system that is there to produce provable and falsifiable evidence, and that is open for this. It was a big achievement in human development, I would say, and the attempt to discredit it in the way that I have been describing is very harmful to progress in general, I would say, because when it's not that you say my opinion about this is a different one. For example, I think that we should I don't know, we should not close down nuclear power plants so quickly, or I think it's too expensive to increase the CO2 tax as the EU did. Okay, no problem. That's all within the scope of opinion. But when it goes beyond it and say, I'm just not believing whatever these mainstream institutions say. It's just not true. I don't care. And you make large portions of society follow this distrust and rejecting everything that comes from elite mainstream institutions, be it mainstream media, mainstream party, mainstream science, then it gets extremely difficult to have a meaningful and reasonable discussion about where a society, and even a global society, should direct itself, how resources should be used, what we think should be banned, what we think should be assisted and supported. And the political strategy of fueling this irrational and anti-empirics base of politics is a very harmful development that we're witnessing.
Finally, what needs to happen next? So, what steps can broadcasters and press freedom, organizations like the International Press Institute, for example, what we can do to better protect this crucial bridge between science and society that are, the meteorologists, the science journalists?
I would say it has two levels to answer this question. One is let's say the concrete, the direct level. I would say that many media outlets have taken into account that this problem is increasing, and they did establish certain mechanisms to protect their journalists, and also some kind of legal framework measurements has been taken. I think about the EU SLAP directive and things like this. So there has been awareness has been risen, and political discussion has started. And I would say that on the concrete level, you can always do more. I'm not saying that this is sufficient, but we are, I would say, on a way to at least having started to address this problem. And it should be continued. This is one thing. The other is that we need to speak about social media, because I would say that the core source of everything we spoke about is a possibility of establishing an entire ecosystem of I wouldn't even call them news outlets. I would rather say propaganda machines on social media, where you can spread out all kind of anti-factual propaganda, lies, and all this that claims to be the truth that the mainstream media is not telling you. And there's basically no proper mechanism yet to counter this. And we do observe certain approaches in politics. For example, the Digital Services Act in the EU that came into force a bit more than a year ago. And these are small steps, but I would assume that there's really more that needs to be done about this, because the power, and it is a big power, that the populist actors and movements did gain, that allows them to attack media, journalists, politicians, institutions, and scientists so fundamentally that they can even destroy entire landscapes of institutions, is only there because they have the possibility of amplifying all these fake news, disinformation, hatred, and lie in social media. If they would be forced to do it with photocopied pamphlets, as in the 1980s, there would be no problem at all. But today you can amplify this with just a fingertip to hundreds and hundreds of millions of brains every day, every minute, all the time. People do believe it. We know everything that needs to be known about this echo chamber, filter bubble effect, and the consequences are, I would say, very severe. And I would say that beside strategies of protecting individual journalists, of establishing mechanisms within the media outlets, and also thinking about law, speaking about law, societies do have to speak much more decisively about what they want to do to counter disinformation on social media. I think this is the core to many problems we are facing at the moment.
So, well, thank you very much, Christian. I completely agree with you in the sense that disinformation, it's kind of this underlying issue from which there are many other threats that we're facing, not only as the media community, not only as journalists, but also society in general, are sprouting from this underlying sort of fertile ground. So as this case study shows, whether presenters like Oz and Terli are no longer just forecasting storms, they're also standing in the eye of one. Their role as trusted messengers makes them prime targets of those who seek to delegitimize science, to dismantle trust in media, and to confuse the public on climate. This is more than disinformation, as you, Christian, was saying. It's a strategic campaign to break the link between facts and the people who explain them. And when this link is broken, it's not just science that suffers, right? It's democracy. Thank you very much, Christian, for your time today's episode, and I look forward to keep talking and to keep working with you on this topic.
Yeah, thank you as well. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the interest. And yes, looking forward to continue the project, Javier.
And for the rest of our audience, thanks for tuning in to Decoding Disinformation. We'll be back soon with more stories from the front lines of the digital attacks against journalists. Until then, stay curious, stay critical, and stay informed. Thank you very much.